YouTube? We are back week 7 of the Hokum Horns Texas football show. My name is Andrew Miller, editor over at HokumHeadlines.com. With me are contributors over at HokumHeadlines.com, Tarek LaCour and Shane Black. We got the whole crew joining you for a second consecutive week. We have Tarek back with us, which means him giving us his score prediction means we are guaranteed to win again this weekend. I'll knock on wood for saying that, but minus a 1 point loss to Alabama, it's a can't miss so far. So, yeah, a lot to talk about, but at the same time, like OU, I don't know how much we're going to learn from that game as far as Texas is concerned, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and get into it. Tarek, what are your thoughts coming out of OU?
Well, one thing we did learn for certain is that the offense looks completely different with Quinn Ewers at the helm than it does with Hudson Card, even though Hudson Card was playing very well down the stretch there. That Quinn Ewers was made to play in Steve Sarkisian's offense, and that's a match made in heaven that needs to stay with us as long as it can. That's so we kind of know that what we saw against Alabama we'll continue to see, even though there are these little problematic throws he'll make from time to time that someone's going to capitalize on, but no one has yet. So that's good. So that was a good thing. I love that Texas came out very focused on the mission at hand. I love that they played with confidence. And this is something else I noticed. Quinn Ewers is a very, very calm guy, and it seemed the entire game, the rest of the team was calm too. But that doesn't just stem from Quinn. I thought Steve Sarkisian has been very calm over the past year, and he's very confident, and that's rubbing off on the team as well. So, but one thing that just made me smile a little bit, well, figuratively, because I don't smile literally, that's another story, is that it looked like the entire game Texas was almost toying with OU, and then just knowing that they had the game fully in control from beginning to end. That's the kind of thing that shows you that what happened last year, these second half collapses and things aren't getting to them as much. They know that they can control the game. So that was good to see. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, overall, you can't, I mean, like Andrew said at the top, there's not I think there's a little bit to pull from this game, but just because it is, such a big rivalry and normally the game's played closer than the number, but obviously that was absolutely blown out on Saturday. But yeah, I like the way Texas was able to play from the front. Clearly they saw the deficiencies of the Oklahoma offense and exploited that. And yeah, Quinn Ewers, and this is no shade against Hudson Card, this team has a much higher ceiling with Ewers at quarterback. And I think we saw that, and as long as you brace yourself for an unfortunate turnover here and there, I mean, the next year and a half with Ewers at the helm is going to be a lot of fun to both watch and cover.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, everyone's talking about it right now in terms of what Quinn Ewers can do, what his ceiling is. You're already getting a lot of people doing his NFL draft scouting reports and those breakdowns. I've seen a lot of those come up on YouTube in the last few days. Yeah, I mean, it's the first time that we've really seen like a pro-style NFL QB with like that, once the NFL draft combine times come around, they get like the once-in-a-generation talent label. But I mean, Quinn Ewers develops it like lightning fast pace that he is right now and progressing mentally. I mean, I don't think the top 10, top 5 NFL draft pick conversation is out of touch, but I'm gonna wait and see how he progresses through these next like 4 or 5 games, because this schedule upcoming it's the meat of the schedule, and he's really going to be put to the test against some tougher defenses in the next few weeks. As far as OU is, and I know that was mostly Javonte Barnes, but like, I guess if you're still scoring double digits with Bevel at core, I don't know. I'm just thinking like that That offense for OU was really good.
TCU's defense is not a ton better than OU's, though. It's really not that great.
I don't think it is. Their linebackers are good, but
There tends to be a correlation between those guys who run those air raid type offenses and having bad defenses. It's not a recipe for success, it seems.
getting the name right there, D. Withers, though. He's a guy. But yeah, no, I agree that for the most part, there tends to be a lack of focus on tending to the defensive side of the ball for those head coaches. But yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't go back and watch a whole lot of the film this week. I kind of jumped straight into Iowa State because I'm more interested in seeing what Iowa State brings to the table than I'm in recapping what we saw against OU. I mean, it was a great weekend. I had a lot of fun. I was out in California over the weekend, so I had a 9 a.m. kickoff to cover, which sucked. I'm so glad I'm not doing that again this year. But it was a really fun Saturday, and I came out of it for the first time this season really feeling that like kind of juice that you do when you're like excited about the program again, and you're saying like, hey, you know, things are headed in the right direction, and you can almost feel a realistic path forward to them making a run at the Big 12 championship game. And that's nice to say. I think that was Inside Texas that said that this 4-2 feels a lot different than last year's 4-2. And if there's anything that I've seen this week that kind of summed up the feeling come out of the weekend, well, it was that. Yeah, so I don't know. Do y'all have anything else to add about the OU game? I really didn't think we would be able to gloss over it this fast.
Well, I mean, there's not a whole lot you can say about a 49-0 thrashing, but one thing that I noticed that was very interesting was, if you recall, over the summer, Steve Sarkisian said that he met with Sean McVay to like learn different formations, things in the red zone, things like that, when he went to Los Angeles. Although, and I was watching that game, and the person I thought about, though, wasn't McVay, it was Kyle Shanahan, with how Steve Sarkisian was using multiple tight end sets. I said, this looks a lot like Shanahan's offense with how he was using the tight ends, using the motions, but in particular, just really throwing to the tight ends and making them as much receivers as well as blockers. You saw Gunnar Helm really getting in there. You saw Jatavian Sanders obviously go off, looking like Travis Kelce. And then bringing in Jalil Billingsley back this week. So I think that that's going to be a focus, especially since ever since Isaiah Nayer went down, I'm still not sure that you have that go-to number 2 wide receiver. I mean, I know that Whittington is kind of used that way, but he's just not the guy I feel like he can just take over kind of in the same way Worthy can, which I think Nayer could have. But I think with the way we're using the tight ends, you won't have to worry about that as much going forward because everyone is a threat.
No, you have 3 running backs that are threats in the passing game too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Keelan Robinson, wow.
Yeah.
It's nice. I mean, with all the pre-snap motion that Sark is running, I mean, 10 of the 21 passes that Quinn Ewers completed, maybe not that many, but a good amount were, you know, just to wide open playmakers in space, letting them do their thing. So I mean, that it doesn't matter like how great of a pass catcher you are, if you can get the ball to, you know, guys with 10.5 track speed who can make people miss, that, you know, really increases your ceiling on the offensive side.
Yeah.
And the last thing I was going to say is the blocking from the wide receivers was incredible. So
yeah,
that was the best blocking game out of Xavier Worthy that I've seen all season.
And Brennan Thompson pancaked the guy at the end there. I saw that. Wow.
Yeah. It was nice to see Brennan and just all those freshmen on the field. I guess in terms of like what you see from the offensive linemen, it looks good. I liked what I saw from Cam Williams. Whenever I watch him face a smaller defensive lineman or edge rusher, it reminds me of his high school tape, and watching his high school highlights, just bullying kids, sometimes even 250 plus. His high school tape looks like Zion Williamson's when he was in high school.
Yeah.
Just dominating. But Anyway,
that is a great comparison.
Yeah, I love watching it. Me and a lot of my friends that like college football, we get some good laughs out of those kids getting bullied around for sure. But yeah, so that, like I said, that's all I really had to say on this. Before we jump into Iowa State, though, we've pretty much reached the halfway point of the regular season. I mentioned last week that it's crazy to think about at this point, but I mean, a lot has happened, so it does feel like the halfway point. I want to hear y'all's tag. I'll go last again here, but I want to hear y'all's grades for each side of the ball so far this season.
So I think, I mean, it's always interesting looking back at it, because if you would have told us before the season Texas is 4-2 with a Red River win halfway through the season, I know, I mean, at least me personally, I would have taken that in a heartbeat. I think that would have been a good outcome. But looking back at it, how we suffered the losses with Quinn going down, it's almost like what could have been. But luckily, everything's still on the table when it comes to the Big 12 in front of this team. So on the defensive side of the ball, I don't think you can give them anything less but an A or an A minus. Kwiatkowski was taking a lot of the offseason blame, and maybe rightfully so, but all three levels have stepped up. And yeah, I mean, Jahdae Barron, who had another interception against Oklahoma, even looking past that, he's always around the ball, and I think he's turned into like a pretty solid leader in the defensive backfield for this team. And then obviously the big guys up front with Byron Murphy and Devondre Sweat and Coburn, they're setting the tone. So honestly, it doesn't seem like we really miss, or we really needed an edge as bad as it made it seem. Obviously, it'd make this defense better, but they're dominating without a true, difference maker on the edge.
I would push back a little bit on that, saying that like if we had a good edge rusher, we would have won Tech. As the conversation surrounding this season would be completely different. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I definitely would have taken Drew Sanders.
Yeah.
I said it earlier this year, or Jared Verse. He's looked good.
Yeah, he's looked good.
So I guess it is kind of scary to think about in that sense when you see how highly ranked this team is when it comes to quarterback pressures. And the story against Tech was, not getting Donovan Smith to the ground. What, a guy like Drew Sanders could have added to this defense. But with that said, the pass rush is certainly not something that has hampered really this team, I think you could say. But yeah, I would say I don't think you can give the defense and PK and Gary and all those guys anything less than like an A minus.
Okay. What about the offense?
It's tougher to grade because when Quinn hasn't played a full game, he played 7 quarters in 3 games. Does that sound about right? Like give or take. But when he's on the field, the offense looks like, they look like Ohio State, a well-oiled machine, playmakers at every position. And it's just damn exciting to watch. Obviously Hudson came in and, carried the ship as best as he could. We kind of had a little bit of this discussion last week. I think it's just kind of the way Sark's offense is run, but I would have liked to see someone besides Worthy, Whittington, and Sanders, receive some more targets, whether that be Casey Kane or O'Meary or whomever. But that's not really a big issue when, you're putting up the yards and points that this team has put up. So, I mean, with Quinn, I'd give it an AA plus. And then I think Hudson did a great job readying the ship. It's so hard to grade because even when Hudson played, he was on an injured ankle. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, I'd go A minus for both.
That's fair.
Don't forget special teams.
I mean, Bert, it was proven that Bert only makes kicks when they matter. When obviously he had a couple bad snaps earlier in the season, but he had no interest being out there up 49 now. He's ready to knock in a game winner against Oklahoma State in a couple weeks.
That's fair. So A's all around, it seems.
Yeah, I mean Trejo has stepped up in a huge way, too at punter. And Tark, we've had this discourse on Twitter, but I still get a little bit nervous because Worthy seems like he really wants to break a punt return, and I think that might get him in trouble. And I could see a muff or two happening, again, knock on wood, coming down the stretch. But yeah, I don't really have any complaints with how any of the special teams is playing, except I guess you could say, the only time I felt a little nervous on Saturday was when Oklahoma faked that field goal. You kind of got to be expecting that, Mr. Banks, especially off the timeout. But it's a different conversation, I guess.
Well, Jaron Thompson and Overshown did expect it. They moved out of and got position for it. So
yeah. So what? I mean, we don't have to spend a ton of time on that. It seemed like the defense was just positioned the other way. Like, I don't understand. If you look at the defensive alignment on that, they were kind of like flanked out to the right, and we got beat, to the left. I don't really totally, because like you said, there was like some contain there, but obviously not enough.
mm-hmm. Yeah, luckily it didn't matter. So
Yeah,
that wasn't on. They should have been more prepared. To answer Andrew's question, my thoughts are basically in line with Shane's. I think the defense I would give a B plus because I feel as much as they're pressuring the quarterback, they need to get there more than they're doing. That it's kind of painful when you think, okay, Texas was like pushing. They pushed around 3 or 4 offensive lines. I mean, they didn't push on Alabama's offensive line, but Tech, West Virginia, Oklahoma pushed them around. And they weren't getting the quarterback on the ground that much. Even when the quarterback is 6'6" and not moving. It's like, come on, get the guy on the ground. They got him a few times, but it was like, it seemed like they were to work way, way, way too hard to make that happen, considering how much pressure was getting there. So that's something. I am very impressed with the progress of people like Justice Finkley, Baron Sorrell. I think they're doing well. I'm excited to see Jamon Tapp and Aaron Bryant and some other, and Trey Bledsoe also, who I think are really good athletes. And knock on wood, if we can get the other Smash brother to Austin and Colton Vasek. So, because I think Burke and Vasek would really wreak havoc. It's like 2 versions of Aiden Hutchinson on both sides. It'd be beautiful to watch. Literally and literally. I mean, they're both like 6'6", just like Hutchinson, and move like him too. So that'd be good. So I love though that we can play complementary football. That Jaron Thompson is a great quarterback of the defense, putting everybody on the back end, making sure they're in the right places, not giving up explosive plays. I think Jalen Ford is going to be a star. He can be even better next year, and it would be nice if Overshawn leaves, that we somehow find a way to put Anthony Hill next to Jalen Ford, because that would be so pretty to watch. But getting ahead of ourselves. But so I give them a B plus because I think they need to A, get more sacks, and B, need to force more turnovers, not getting enough. So with the offense, I'll split and give them 2 grades. I'll give them a B with Hudson Card and a B plus with Quinn Ewers. We still need to see more from Quinn against a good team. The sad thing is, so you blew out ULM, which that was what you expected. You saw that he could really move the ball against Alabama, which I watched that entire Texas A&M Texas game. There's some really good players on that Alabama defense besides Will Anderson and Dallas Turner. I think Kool-Aid, and my wife could not believe that the guy's name was actually Kool-Aid. I was like, no, that's his name. So I think they have their corners and safeties have got some really good players. So the fact that you could move the ball against those guys bodes well for Iowa State and other places that we'll get into. So all that, I would give them a B with Hudson because they can't hit those downfield throws with Hudson. With Quinn, you're starting to see that more, so I give them the B plus, but we need to see more. So that was good. Special teams, I'll give it A, especially because of Bert Auburn has been, really good, except for just not caring about that field goal. And of course, what would the world be like if he just made that chip shot against Alabama? Which is funny because the Alabama's kicker missed that exact same field goal twice against Texas A&M. So it's like, well, if Bama's kicker is going to miss, I guess we can give Bert Auburn a pass, since he did make that huge one to end the game too. So that's where I would say so. B plus to the defense, B plus on offense if they're with Quinn, B with Hudson, and special teams I'll give an A.
I mean, I'm going to be in the same vicinity as y'all, but offense, I'll give a B plus. It's hard to get midseason grades for the offense, that's for sure. But I really liked the game plan for Hudson.
One other thing with the offense, there's been too many drops with Xavier Worthy, and they were happening against Oklahoma too, where it almost led to a pick and then just some other drops early in the season. That's got to get cleaned up.
Yeah, I mean, the Tech game drags this down so much for the offensive grade in my mind, but at the same time, I haven't really seen an offense look super clean against Tech this season. They just really are good at throwing teams off, just throwing teams off schedule, making offenses look discombobulated at times, things like that. But I think Jalen Hutchings is a big reason for that. But I really like the game plan against West Virginia. I thought it was impressive for Sark to literally almost throw half of his offensive schemes and concepts out the window and just adopt more of a traditional, not entirely, but more of a traditional spread offense for Hudson. I thought that was impressive. I'll give him credit for that one. Yeah, I mean, I give it a B plus, just all things considered. Yeah, Quinn Ewer's arm on a lot of those plays is a huge cheat code. So, I mean, the way he's played when he's been on the field has clearly been great. Roshan Johnson is on a pretty good pace this season to outpace what he did last year. And then I did a big long article about it earlier this week, but man, yeah, I like the way that things are trending with Keelan Robinson. Keep him on the field, keep finding creative ways to get him involved. The amount of stuff he can do is pretty incredible. I think a lot of people don't give him enough credit for the fact that he can actually run the ball up the middle. Go watch some film last year when he was given the ball up the middle on delayed handoffs. He's pretty good. He's got really good field vision, even when he's running when he's running through some of that chaos in the box. But yeah, I mean, I like a lot of what the offense has done. Offensive line's playing a lot better than expected, man. We're sitting here talking about Kelvin Banks and Christian Jones being depending on how they play down the stretch. I mean, I think Kelvin Banks is definitely all Big 12. Dude, Christian Jones might be in the conversation for at least an honorable mention spot. So I think that's crazy. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm gonna go with the B. Tark, did you say B plus? All right, I'll agree with you. I'll go with the B plus. So yeah, I can't go enough for an A minus yet. The lack of pass rush, considering the opportunities Texas has had, is a little frustrating to me as someone that spent all offseason, it seemed, trying to find different. I mean, I know I don't work for the team, but trying to find different ways that Texas be able to make it happen. I was hoping that we would see DeMarvion Overshone have a few sacks by this point of the season. I think there's a little bit more he could get involved with. But yeah, I'll give the defense a B plus. I really like how the defense has eliminated really the big play threat. That is nice. Special teams unit, yeah, I'll give it an A minus. I don't think it's been anything super special in the way of the return game. You've limited mistakes, which is great. Kicking game for the most part has looked good. There's been mishaps. Punting game has been pretty clean since the first game. So I'll give it that. But I mean, we've gotten pretty accustomed to seeing some big returns from Xavier Worthy, but especially to Sean Jameson. They don't really, I mean, it's not really part of it anymore. I mean, the best Deshaun Jameson play was a punt block. So, but no, I mean, I think it's been solid eliminating mistakes. So I think we all agree on this. But yeah, so I guess at this point, let's go ahead and jump into an Iowa State preview here. I'm excited because my favorite week of film study for defense is Iowa State. So I'm kind of an analytics nerd in that regard. There hasn't been enough time in the day for me to digest everything that they do, but I find their 3-3-5 or 3-3 stack, whatever you want to call it, their fire zone defense. I find it very interesting. Their offense is incredibly not interesting. But yeah, well, I guess Shane, you went first last time. Tarek, let me pass it over to you. What are some of your initial thoughts for the Iowa State game?
Well, this is a pretty shocking thing to think about. In the last 2 games combined, Iowa State has scored 20 points. Combined. They scored 11 against Kansas, and they scored 9 against Kansas State. So that's now keep in mind that Kansas State and Kansas don't exactly have elite defenses either. So if you can't move the ball against bad defenses, you're probably not really going to move it against Texas, who is a pretty good defense. I don't think Texas is an elite defense, but they're certainly in the upper half of the Big 12. They're certainly better than those 2 teams. Their quarterback situation has gotten worse because the guy does more turnovers. He doesn't really do anything that makes you like Brock Purdy could do something kind of incredible once in a while, or maybe he could throw it to Kohler, who could do something incredible. But the tight ends aren't what they used to be. The offensive line isn't what it used to be. It's just not the same Iowa State team. In a way, this game feels a lot like Oklahoma, in that, yes, you really need to win this game, but if you win it, it's not like winning it in the past. It's like, well, what's Texas, a 16-point favorite at this point?
Yeah, 16 and a half, 17.
16
14 and a half, or 15 and a half. 14 and a half
okay.
earlier today.
They're a 2-touchdown or above favorite. That's telling you kind of all you need to know. Now, they do have a good defense. Texas will have to work for it. But what I would think we'll see from Iowa State is going to be a better version of what we saw against Oklahoma. So, will Quinn be doing all the things he was doing against Oklahoma? Probably not, because they have better playmakers on this defense. But it'll be but now you can definitely tell that the game is slowing down for Quinn, so that doesn't bode well for them. Also, this game being at home, they're getting used to playing early. I think that will bode well. So I'm not particularly worried about this game. And also, if there was even a chance that Texas was not focused for this game, 2 words: Bo Davis. That's all you need to know. Bo Davis, I'm sure, has probably been replaying that clip from last year. That was I watched it again today, and I still get a little scared. I mean, that's pretty intense. So I expect Texas to come out and handle business. I do expect it, obviously, to be closer than the Oklahoma game, but it wouldn't shock me due to how bad the offense is if this is another shutout. Not as high scoring, but another shutout.
Yeah. Iowa State's calling card this season has been that defense. You just mentioned it right at the end there. The Cyclones have beaten Texas 3 times in a row, and last year was just an absolute mauling, 30-7 in Ames. Texas got dominated on both lines of scrimmage. They looked like they didn't want to be there. Iowa State just, could do whatever they wanted at will. And that's partly the reason I don't see this as a trap game, because so many of those Texas guys that experienced that loss last season are going to be hungry, and they definitely have this game circled. Iowa State can't run the ball. I don't really dislike Hunter Deckers, especially when you have a guy like Hutchinson on the outside, who I know at least going into last weekend he was leading the country in receiving. So that combination alone could help them move the ball down the field, but they can't run the ball. I mean, their top two running backs, what Andrew would probably know more, but they've been injured for most of the year. And then when you're trying to rely on a redshirt freshman, Deckers, it's going to be tough in a place like DKR, especially with the confidence that this Texas defense is playing with. And when you look at the Iowa State defense, they still have Will McDonald, who just turned himself into one of the best edge defenders in the country. But the Texas offense just has too many weapons that Kansas State and Kansas really don't have. So even if they, even if they're honed in on Bijan, Quinn could have a field day. If they want to sit back and only keep, 5 or 6 in the box, Bijan's going to have a field day. So I don't see a world in which Iowa State can have sustained success on either side of the ball. I think we could see them come out and fight for a quarter or two, give Texas some trouble at the beginning of the game, but I don't think they have the horses this year to show that sustained success throughout 4 quarters against the Texas team who's playing with the most confidence that they've played with in, years. So, like Tarek mentioned before, Bo Davis is going to have his guys ready. That's going to trickle down throughout the whole team. I think the Longhorns will be ready to play on Saturday. And if they are ready to play, I don't see any world in which the Cyclones can really give them a game here.
Yeah, so to your to a lot of the points that y'all made here. For one thing, unfortunately for Iowa State, yes, they've had some injury issues in the backfield. They're a little healthier now. I think Jarrell Brock, I believe, is their top running back, and he just wasn't very good last weekend. 33 yards, somewhere in that vicinity. But their rushing attack has been pretty anemic all season long, so that's not anything new. The really interesting thing to me about Iowa State is going to be how, I mean, because let's face it here, this is going to be the first game this season where like Quinn Ewers is facing a defense that he can beat, like that. I wrote about this earlier today with Jaleel Billingsley. This Texas offense matches up pretty well on paper with Iowa State, where like the one way you get past Iowa State is just by out-athleting them. If you can get deep on them, if you can manage to get the ball outside in the running game, and then you can also work the ball a little bit to the outside on some quick outs, because they like to play a little or a lot of bail coverage with their deep safeties. So it's like there's going to be opportunities here, but like this is going to be one of the more calculated defenses that Quinn Ewers will play all season. So this will be a situation where like hopefully he avoids mistakes. I think that's really the only downfall here. He's faced edge rushers at this point. Well, yeah, I mean, he played 1 quarter against Alabama, so he faced edge rushers as good as Will McDonald. So, but I mean, the defensive line is going to be a challenge. My big question is the ground game. Tarek, I was talking with you earlier. The over/under on some of the player props for the week for Bijan's rushing yards is about at 104, and I personally would hit the under on that this week. I've looked at the way that Iowa State has contained the run. I get it. Bijan's a good running back, but so is Deuce Vaughn. Deuce Vaughn's week last weekend was awful. That was his worst game of the season so far. So Iowa State's played some decent running backs, man. Richard Reese, that freshman kid at Baylor's pretty good. He's not Bijan, no question about it, but he didn't really do much against Iowa State either. So that's
how
what
much did Deuce Vaughn do against Kansas? How much did Deuce Vaughn do against Iowa State?
Let me check. It wasn't much, man. I'll find it here in a second, but they have barely, as a team, allowed over 100 rushing yards a game. No, they haven't. 91 a game. So
he was Vaughn was 10 carries, 23 yards.
Did he get hurt?
I don't know. Martinez picked up 77 yards on 19 carries. I didn't have a whole lot of eyes on this game, so I'm not sure how the
It was a
script went.
really, really frustrating game I watched a little bit of it the last 2 days. It's a really frustrating game to watch just from a schematics perspective because it was such a mess throughout a lot of it. But the one interesting thing is that like Iowa State's pass defense, you can tell that they can be beat when you allow more than 200 passing yards to Adrian Martinez.
That's fair.
And
That guy literally can't even throw straight.
Yeah, Kansas State's gonna like usually if you get beat by Kansas State, you're getting beat on the ground, but Iowa State found a way to get beat through the air against Kansas State. So Tulane didn't even let that happen. So yes, you can beat Iowa State deep if Baylor found a way to find holes in this Iowa State defense with their passing game. Texas definitely can. But, like, it's tricky. It's not going to be easy. You can't ride Bijan to a win against this Iowa State team. It's just, it can't happen. I don't think you need to. But, like, Xavier Worthy has to be better. You got to keep JT Sanders involved. Jordan Whittington's going to have to play a role here. And Sark's going to have to be creative. I mean, it's a good thing that Iowa State's offense is one of the worst in the Big 12, if not probably the worst. Because if not, they'd be probably 6-0. Like, I think a lot of people overlook with Iowa State the fact that they've lost. It was so unfortunate the way they lost. Like, Baylor had the rest in their pocket in that Iowa State game. Bad targeting call, a lot of missed calls against Iowa State. I don't like to blame games on the ref in the the rest in the Big 12 because that's just like an endless blame game you can play. But that one was really bad. And then, I mean, if Iowa State has a kicker that's even like a high school caliber against Kansas, they're winning that game. Even if the wind's blowing a little bit different. And then last weekend, I mean, they lost 10-9. So you can look at it any way you want, but like this is one of those teams that has played everything super close. Texas is just going to have to rely on points. They're going to have to rely on the passing game just being flat out better. More in depth, like if there is a way we can run the ball, you're going to have to attack. I believe it's the left side. You're going to have to go opposite Will McDonald. The problem there is Iowa State's two best linebackers tend to shade to that side to make up for the lack of someone setting the edge there. Sorry, I'm going to have to edit this out. Come here. Come here. Shut up.
Am I frozen on your screen?
No. I also love that you're a fellow Yankees fan. That's good.
Yes, I know. People love to make fun of the Texas Yankee combo, but
as I said to a guy this week who was an Aggie fan, he said, all I needed to know about you is that you're a Texas Lakers and Yankees fan. And I was like, excuse me, because I think winning is important. He didn't have much of a comeback for that. But. And now you are frozen.
Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. It happened last week. I actually just ordered a new PC, so I think it's just I have an old computer, but
okay,
I should be good now.
All right.
Okay, so Andrew, you're saying run away from Will McDonald, but they shade to that side.
Yeah, so Iowa State does a nice job up front of funneling runs to the outside and then cleaning them up with their linebackers or with with their hybrid safety, the star position. I mean, it's the fundamentals of that 3-3 stack, but the linebackers are doing a nice job this season of cleaning that up. That's why their run defense has been so effective this season. I mean, they're doing a nice job clogging up the middle too. So the one thing that you're going to have to be able to do, though, that Kansas State didn't find a way to do with Deuce Vaughn is get Bijan Robinson through that first line of defense, find a way to get the edge on the left, get some outside zone there, and then you're just going to have to get them, like, out-athlete them at the second level. Those second-level line yards, that's going to be a key stat on the ground this week. But, I mean, let's take a broader look at this, too, where it's like, how creative Sark was in getting Roschon and Bijan. Well, Bijan wasn't super involved in the passing game, had a really, really nice catch, but in the way you got like Roschon and Keelan involved, like I think that's how most of the running backs are going to make their money on Saturday. Iowa State just is too good to be able to run it up the middle on them, not to mention how basically every Big 12 team's handbook on how to play defense against Texas at this point is stack the box against Bijan and go from there. So that's going to be a key. The secondary doesn't scare me a whole lot. TJ Tampa? I believe I got that right. He's their best corner. Miles Purchase, sophomore, if you look at like his coverage stats this season, they're a little deceiving. He's been beat a good bit. It just tends to go against the safeties because like they're the ones that have to come over and help. But in that fire zone defense, the safeties can be spaced out sometimes. And so if a cornerback really does not have a good read on the ball or a good read on their assignment in their zone, the safety can also get dinged for that, just from a statistical perspective, or if you're looking at PFF or anything like that. So Miles Purchase, correct me if I'm wrong here, I believe he is their slot corner.
Yeah.
I don't think he is?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, I think TJ Tampa's boundary. So, yeah, I mean, there's a pretty easy game plan, I think, that you can play against Iowa State. Get the ball to the outside. If you try to go up the middle, it's not going to go super well. But I think it's nice that Iowa State is not like a team that's able to force a lot of turnovers this season, because that'll make it easier on Quinn Ewers. That was the one thing I was honestly scared of when I was going into kind of some of the film study and stats review for the week, was that Iowa State would have forced, 2 interceptions a game, and that they would have all these schemes and concepts and, able to cause all this chaos on the back end of their defense, kind of like we've been used to in some years past. But that's just not the case this year. And so their defensive backs, they're not very good. TJ Tampa's pretty good. But like, there's a lot of areas you can attack on this defense. The one thing, though, I will say about the Iowa State linebackers and the safeties is that the way that you're going to beat them, if we can't, like, the way that you're going to beat them outside of just doing like some of the standard stuff like the deep ball, some of these swing passes, screen plays, things like that, is you can get some out routes, you can get some quick outs, 5-10 yard quick outs there. You're not going to get much, though, in the flats or between the numbers unless your offensive line is holding up very well. So it's going to be a big game for Kelvin Banks and Christian Jones in pass pro. I mean, we need the interior to be better if the ground game's going to get going. And then I guess specifically that would put the onus on Kelvin Banks if you're trying to attack the left side. But yeah, I mean, there's a game plan here. I think we're going to see a lot of attempts to get the deep ball going.
Yeah. I was actually impressed last Saturday, not to spend too much time going back, but you could tell that there was 5 to 7 times where, maybe even more, on play actions where Sark was trying to get Worthy over the top, but Quinn ate the ball, would find his check down, find Worthy underneath, or find Whittington underneath. And I thought that showed major maturity, not just trying to force it in, especially early when like how loud that stadium would get on a deep connection to Worthy. Quinn didn't force it, and he was able to take the underneath and really played with what the defense gave to him. So I thought that was impressive, and that can be something that he can take into this game and going forward, because the only way I see Iowa State kind of running with Texas here is if Texas tries to hand them the game with turnovers. And even in that case, Kansas tried to hand Iowa State the game, and Cyclones just wouldn't take it from them. So I'm looking at the number. It is good, like a good sign for Quinn in this Texas offense that Iowa State ranks 98th in opponent interception percentage. So they don't, compared to how many times people are thrown against them, they don't force many interceptions. So I wouldn't be worried unless Quinn, coughs it up 3 times. But this defense doesn't seem as capable as for if as oh, stumbling on my words. This defense doesn't seem as capable as Cyclone defenses in the past at being able to force Quinn into 3 interceptions on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you could see a lot of 5 wide, not necessarily 5 wide receivers, but spreading everyone out, because Bijan has great hands. We have great tight ends. And you have Jalil Billingsley back, so he'll be a great opportunity to use him. Hopefully, we'll finally see some of Jay Hall. This would be a good game to use him because he can get down the field. And that's the other thing about that second wide receiver. I think when you had Nayer, you just had 2 easy deep threats. But now you have Worthy's the deep threat, Witt's the middle guy, and Kane's there. Sometimes you forget he's even there. Not because he does anything wrong, he just doesn't get the ball very much. But yeah, also, so that's very interesting though that Deuce only got 30 yards on 10 carries. So that's a very stingy defense. But I would say though, the way that Deuce runs the ball is very different from how Bijan runs it, and also Roshan Johnson runs it very different too. So we'll see how we'll do that. And I think that Sark will have a very good game plan ready to go. This is one. I mean, basically, if they're on a revenge tour, every game has been circled. And this was the game that they had to sit Casey Thompson down finally and try with Card, and we know how that all went. So, yeah, I'm not too worried about it. Obviously, they'll have to work for it on the run, which is fine. You can't just run over everybody. So be creative and things like that. But if there's one thing I know about Steve Sarkisian and how much he loves the running backs, he will find multiple ways to get them yards, even if it's not just running the ball, like we did with Najee Harris throwing in the ball, finding other ways, getting Keelan involved. I think you could see a lot from Bijan that way this week too. And also, this is a morale thing. I think that the defense continues to play well as long as they're in the game. If Texas starts to get a bit of a lead, I think they can wear down towards the end as well. So that's something to watch.
I'm trying to find something right now. Because one thing that I'm going to be watching in this game is how Iowa State tries to run their offense against us. I think they're going to try to take a page out of the Tech playbook on this. Not necessarily going for it on 4th down all the time, but they're just not as aggressive in that regard.
Hunter Decker, do you think Hunter Decker is going to be running the way Donovan Smith was? I don't think so.
No. No, I'm just saying that they're gonna try to pick up, if they pick up 3 yards on 1st down, I think they're gonna find that as a successful 1st down. Maybe 4. I'm looking at more from the dink and dunk perspective compared to QB run or trying to do some of the conceptual stuff that Tech did. Obviously they're going to try to get Xavier Hutchinson involved. I think he is still leading the country just in receptions. Jalen Noel's not a bad receiver either. He's actually the guy that ended up taking the starting spot in the slot away from Tarek Milton. He's their 2nd best receiver. Those are the 2 guys to watch. Hunter Decker's he can complete short passes, but man, once you start working the intermediate long game and getting them moving on the run, least not yet. I want to see if I can find this stat, but if y'all want to go ahead and give your score predictions on the game, I'll pass it over to you, Tark.
31-10. I just don't. Even if they have a really good first half defense, they're just going to find a way to not move the ball, because if you can't move the ball against Kansas State, if you can't move it against Kansas, you're not moving it against Texas at home. Now, if this was a night game at Iowa State, I would feel totally different. But this is a team that knows it's really playing for something now and has something to prove. So I'm just, and also this is the other thing, no Breece Hall. So there's just not anyone to worry about on offense. I mean, even Hutchinson, he's a good receiver. We've played better, and I think Ryan Watts is going to shut him down. So, because that's what Ryan Watts has been doing all year. He's a guy who hasn't gotten enough praise, but he's been kind of an eraser for us. So 31-10.
Yeah,
I do think I'll say this. I do think Quinn's going to throw an interception. So we'll get that out there.
I think that's fair. I tend to agree with that latter take. As for the score, I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm going to go 38-13. It's kind of a weird flip. I thought the Oklahoma game was going to be a 7-point game, and now I'm saying we're going to beat Iowa State by 25. But
I told you guys it wasn't going to be close either way.
Yep, yeah. But no, regardless, I'm actually more excited that we're not going to get needled to death with the tight ends. Like Charlie Kohler, even Chase Allen was crushing Texas the past couple seasons. So that'll be a nice change. And yeah, I mean, I could see. The only way I see Iowa State putting up more than 20 is if they get a couple short fields. Other than that, I really have a lot of confidence in this Texas defense. And then I think the offense, it just will never go stagnant for more than a couple drives at a time. And if you get the ball 10, 12 times, I think they're scoring on at least half of them. So that gets me to 38.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess we're gonna stay the same trend that we have all season, where I'm way too conservative. I did my prediction today. I said 28-17. I do think it's gonna be wider than that, thinking about it now, but like I could see Texas staying under 30 though. I just think that Iowa State does have a good defense, and there's just gonna be drives that are going to look a little disjointed because there's only so much you can do against Iowa State's defense. I was trying to look up. I got the actual order of it. Iowa State does rank 9th in the Big 12 in average time of possession by scoring drive.
That's not good.
So if they can score, then they're going to have a lot of time of possession. The problem is they can't usually score all that much.
That just sounds like an offense that lacks any explosive playmakers to me.
Is Iowa State the sack leader in the Big 12?
I don't know.
They're 21st in sack percentage nationally.
I'll get back to you on that.
That's what I got.
21st. Okay, that's.
Are you looking sack percentage?
Sack for that sack percentage, yeah. About 8%.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like they find a lot of creative ways to get pressure, as we all know, and like we're gonna see some safety and linebacker stunt blitzes trying to test the interior of the Texas offensive line. I think you're gonna see that. I know. So he's probably not the favorite person of any Texas fan, but I heard a lot last week. Gabe Eichert talking about how OU needed to attack Cole Hudson. And like I think if I'm taking that concept though, I think Iowa State's going to try to do it this week. I don't know how successful that's going to be, but they're going to test the middle of this offensive line because that's a lot of times where they try to get pressure, and then you can have someone like Will McDonald to clean it up because he's one of the best edge rushers in the Big 12. Classify him as, but yeah, I'll go 28-17, and I'll go ahead and hopefully accept the L now that I will not win the margin of victory again this week. I say that that's going to be a guaranteed victory. I mean, like Iowa State's offense would have to do something that what I would imagine would put PK on the hot seat right away. If Iowa State was to do something enough to win this game. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, here's something to think about. The first half of last game, when they had Brees Hall, Purdy, Kohler, all those guys last year, they held them to 3 in the first half at home. So, and then the team just kind of quit in the second half, and you can kind of see that. So if you're played that well against a team at home, and you're nowhere near as good now, it makes me tend to think it's not going to work out as well. And they don't do the things that would make you worry, such as against Tech, you had so many tall receivers. That's a big kind of a thing. You had a big quarterback who could kind of run, do those things, and they just don't have any of the things that usually give Texas trouble. So if Deckers could really run, I would worry. But
yeah, that's fair. So I'd like to do it with this because we did the midseason grades earlier this video. Let's round it out. Give me your updated record prediction for Texas, along with what you think the losses are going to be.
I stand at what I said before, 9-3. So I think Texas will lose one more, and I will say they're going to lose. They'll lose on the road to Oklahoma State. That'll be close. And then they will use that bye week to get ready for TCU and then run the table the rest of the way with a few close games in there. But Sanders at home, he tends to play better. Although, let's face it, I don't know how Texas won that 2020 game against Oklahoma State, but they did. So I think he'll be out to kind of avenge that one. And I don't think Texas will be blown out in the game this year, so I think that's a good thing. But I think they will sneak in the title game. So I think it'll be Oklahoma State, Texas, in the title game for the rematch. And I'll say Texas, if that happens, Texas wins in the rematch, but they'll lose on the road.
I'm all in. I'm going to table run here. And you can call it you can call it reactionary, you can call it buying into the hype, but man,
Andrew's laughing, but it's not crazy. That's the thing. That's what makes it funny.
So this is, as I'm 23 years old. So when they went to the national championship 2009, I was in 5th grade.
So you don't even do you remember Vince?
Not really.
What a shame.
So
I was a freshman in high school.
This is like going into every game knowing you're gonna have the best quarterback in that matchup is an interesting feeling, and I might just be getting out ahead of myself, but I'm feeling pretty giddy. And I know, I mean, it's been said time and time before, there are going to be drives, quarters, maybe even games where Quinn comes back down to earth just because he's going to have a couple turnovers that are a little bit of head scratchers. But when I saw that game time come out in Stillwater for 2:30 and not under the lights, that flipped that. What I don't know if it's just PTSD from the 2018 game where Sam and Texas went in ranked 6th or something. But under the lights, I want no part of the Cowboys. In the afternoon, I'm
They
feeling a
would
little
have
more
won that
confident.
game if Tom Herman wasn't an idiot in suspending those guys for being late.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's so
The
many good
late in.
reasons to suspend people, but that was like the one I was like, really? Seriously?
Yeah.
Chris Boyd.
But yeah, and then Kansas State on the road. I don't trust Adrian Martinez. I mean, we've seen him at 4 years at Nebraska. He could give the defense fits running the ball, but I mean, if you look at it, Quinn Ewers versus Adrian Martinez, I'm picking Ewers. So honestly, I think we can run the table, and then all bets are off at that point. I wouldn't be shocked if we finished 10-2, made it to the Big 12 championship, and then Texas found a way to punt it in Dallas and lose. But yeah,
that'd be so peak Texas.
yeah, it would be. But I'm sipping the burnt orange Kool-Aid. I've done it before. It's bit me in the butt before, but the pairing of Quinn with the best running back in the country, one of the best tight ends in the country now, and a defense that's actually played really, really solid through 6 games. I'm all in. I'm all in, and that's how you get crushed. That's how you get crushed, and I know it is. I know it is, but at this point, I'm not going to morally hedge. I'm going to put my heart out on the line, and yeah, this could look very, very dumb in 2 weeks if they go into Stillwater and just kind of lose by a couple touchdowns. But I don't think
They're not
that's
going
going
to
to
lose.
happen.
No, that's the, if last year's team kept it that close, I don't think it's not. It'll be a close game. And Gundy doesn't really tend to blow good teams out. He tends to find a way to do something stupid against good teams.
Yeah, I mean, that's another reason I don't. I don't trust Spencer Sanders either. That could be bias from seasons past, but in big moments, I am not a Spencer Sanders believer. So give me Quinn over all these guys on the schedule, and yeah, I'll ride him to the promised land.
Okay.
Oh man. Let's see here then. Follow up run the table. Well, I guess you don't. I guess for the regular season, you have them running the table.
Yeah, and in the most Texas fashion possible. They're going to be talked about like, oh, if these things go right on Championship Saturday, could a 2-loss Texas sneak in? Will the committee take into account them not having Quinn? And then they're going to lose, and then they're going to lose, and then they're going to lose.
If Texas blew out everybody, they still would and won the Big 12. They still wouldn't get in. They're just not. You're not getting in with 2 losses with the schedule. There aren't enough good teams on it.
It's I think so. Someone that I know does a like he keeps a running tab of teams that have like officially like been eliminated from college football playoff contention. And I would say, I mean, there's still like somewhat of a path. It'd have to require a lot of regular season upsets to teams that, typically don't lose in the regular season, like the top dogs right now. But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much of a path, but I think there's a small sliver. But granted, I don't think it's going to happen because they're going to lose in Dallas. So
honestly, at this point, I'm not going to be like super shocked if it's a half SEC, half Big Ten playoff where Michigan and Ohio State get in and Alabama and Georgia get in. I could totally see that happening. Clemson, even if they're running the table, they're just not anywhere near as good as those other teams. They're like, yeah, you might win the ACC, but who's in the ACC? It's like, yeah, these are not the Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, Clemson teams. So I mean, I don't expect that to happen with an all SEC, all Big Ten playoff, but I could certainly see it happening. But as far as us getting in, this is the problem of being in the Big 12, especially when Oklahoma was bad. Maybe you could have gotten in if like Oklahoma did what they're supposed to do and won those games they didn't, and maybe Oklahoma would have been like a top 4, 5, 16. You beat them, you beat Oklahoma State, and maybe you have a little bit of a resume, but it's a bad league. What can you say? Go ahead.
I mean, I think you would have to. So I would actually counter you, and I would actually say, like, if Texas wins out, man, I think they would be in, because I look at 2014 Ohio State, and I'm like,
I think
why are we trying to talk ourselves into this?
I'm just saying the hypotheticals, and I'm gonna.
Yeah.
You guys interrupt me because I'm starting to walk it back. So.
Okay. No, let's hear it. I want to hear the theory.
Well, no, that's what I was going to say, because I was going to transition to the FPI and how crazy the FPI views Texas, like a 16% chance to make the playoff right now, 60% chance to win the Big 12. Nuts. But, no, I mean, if I'm setting the over-under at losses for the rest of the season, or at least the rest of the regular season, I'm putting it at 3.5. I think we lose on the road to Kansas State. That game doesn't give me good feelings at this point. I know that's part of the problem is we don't trust Adrian Martinez, so you don't know what version of him you're going to get. I get that we're better now than we were when we were playing Tech on the road, but Kansas State is a better team than Tech. And at least the Tech team that had Donovan Smith. I think Tech with Baron Morton is actually a really good team. He looks if he keeps looking the way he did last weekend, man, he's good. But yeah, I think
you mean total season losses at 3.5, not the final 6 games, right?
I think regular season.
Like in total, like the over under would be 3.5. Like we're either 8-4, 9-3, not 3.5 in the next 6 games.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yes.
Okay.
For the regular season.
Yeah, that's what.
Okay.
No. I think that
I think that's fair.
Ironically circled on the revenge tour is Kansas. But I think Kansas game looks good. This might just be. I mean, in terms of where I've gone to school, I've got multiple different allegiances, but Oklahoma State's my undergrad, so biased there. I'll be in Stillwater for that game. So, I think Shane's frozen again. But yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna go 9-3. I think. No, I'll walk it back. I'm going 8-4. I don't know what the other loss is, but I don't know. I have covered Texas for too long throughout the 2010s and the early 2020s to have enough faith to say that it's going to be 9-3 for sure. This team is better. This team is definitely better. It's just unfortunate that the Tech loss happened, because if you get the Tech win, then there's a very good path to the Big 12 championship game right now. It's almost really hard not to get there. But there's too many dangerous spots coming up where it's like just a couple of mistakes, a couple injuries, whatever that be, could really, really hurt you. So Tarek, and that's where Tarek, I would give you a little bit of pushback saying like, yeah, I mean the Big 12, like, is there like a prime playoff contender here right now? No, but like if
It's
you
a conference
get
of
wins in Manhattan, huh?
It's a conference of parity.
It is, and I think if Quinn Ewers looks really good down the stretch, and you go and win out, that's something the committee recognizes. But I mean, I'm not in the ballpark of saying right now that Texas is going to win out realistically. I'm always way too conservative on it, so. Maybe I mean, Tarek, you've been right most of the season, so maybe it ends up beating in the middle with you. I could see 3 or 4 losses to cap the regular season. That's where I would sit.
I could certainly see if Texas were to win out, if we were to make all of Shane's hopes and dreams come true, I could see it playing out the way Baylor did, where you just win a lot of one-score games, which I could see. The one thing that gives me a little hope that Shane could be right is I feel like Texas is the one team that has a really explosive offense, so that can always save you, as Oklahoma has showed us past few years. So
Yeah.
there's certainly, but the fact that Shane could say that, and I laughed because I'm like that, I could actually see that happening. Versus, come on, why are you telling yourself this? That's a good sign. But I have a question for you. This is in the world of recruiting, though. So you have A&M. They're at 3-3 now, and all the websites, of course, everyone's kind of noticing Anthony Hill, Colton Bosick, potential flips. So if you can only have one, you can either take Hill or you can take Bosick.
Oh,
Who
Hill.
would you want to flip more? I'm saying Hill too.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. It's just talent difference. But
And somewhat of positional need. Would you argue that as well?
yeah, I mean,
Well, I think you need linebacker and edge.
Yeah.
you do, but like you can find linebacker in the portal easier than you can find edge. Like I'm not saying that you can go out and find an Anthony Hill. Can't, but like there are like like at least in the last 2 years, there have been like 2 or 3 like all conference, like Power 5 all conference caliber edge rushers that have showed up in the portal. Whereas there's like at least 5 or 8 linebackers that do. Like I mean, we went out and got Demonte Tucker Dorsey, who's not like, I mean, he's not going to be an all Big 12 guy, but like he's a decent starter. I don't even know if we can go out and find an edge that's a decent starter this offseason. I hope so. But
No, we're going to have to develop and recruit those guys.
or pay someone like $1 million for NIL.
Yeah.
I'll make it interesting for you though. What would your answer be if I said, or if I added DJ Hicks to the equation?
Ooh, man. I'm still saying Hill.
Yeah, I'd go Hill.
You go Hill over Hicks? Man, okay. I'd go Hicks at that point.
Now, I would say this though. I have a feeling if Hill ends up at Texas, Hicks would end up at Texas too, because I don't think Hicks is going there by himself. He doesn't seem like that kind of dude. He's just like, he's like, wait a minute, I'm not coming here by myself. Because the other thing is, this is something that an easy sell to Hicks. There's like 15 guys on that roster that are basically him anyway. Hicks would have made far more of an impact if he went to Oklahoma. So if Hill's going there, if you don't know what's going to go on with A&M now, with all the changes that can be made, I think I could see him ending up at Texas with Hill. Now, realistically, if Shane's ideas come true, I could see a world where you get all 3, but we'll go 1 week at a time. But I had to ask that recruiting question because, as you saw, Hayes Fawcett said, "Flip season is upon us," so all hands on deck.
So Bostic could happen. Hill is more likely. I can tell you that much. Hill is definitely more likely.
Hill's going to go to the team that looks better at the end. That's what I think.
He's got some Harold Perkins in him in the way of that recruitment. It could.
Yeah, I was going to mention Perkins, who I mean just looks like I mean, when just watching him on the field, he is like a scary player. It'd be nice to have that kind of player in the middle of the defense.
So nice.
The thing about the 2022 class is it was a great class, and you still like shook your head at how many people Texas should have gotten if they just got like 8 and 4 last year.
I said that. I've said that over and over and over again. If you win Kansas and you get a 7th win in a bowl game, you signed at least 2 more 5 stars.
Yeah.
But
Pain. That's all we know.
I will leave it at this. If y'all have any more bold takes you want to shoot out before the end of before we call it here, all good. I wanted to give one bold prediction for the portal before we go. I will say that in our 2023 portal class, we sign either Evan Stewart or Harold Perkins.
I would love it. Well, so what's up with I mean Stewart? The buzz.
I don't want Evan Stewart.
Wow.
You don't want him?
No.
Okay.
No. He's he kind of he's a very first of all he's an incredibly talented guy, and he showed that this past week and a few other weeks. He already is reminding me of Antonio Brown. He's like got that vibe to him. I was like, you know what? Look, I get that you're a great player. I get that you're confident. I even like that, but something is just off about that guy.
Yeah.
Tom Brady better watch out.
I think that's a fair take, Tarek. I've noticed that too. But I don't know, man. Like he is dynamic. Like if you can against Alabama, he had like 9 catches, 106 yards in the A&M offense. Man,
oh yeah, him and Worthy would have been great. I mean, it's the thing. You need to understand what I'm saying in context. I would love to have Stewart the player, but is Stewart the person? And not that he's a bad person. It's just okay. Sark has this locker room where he wants it. You don't need people who aren't going to be fully bought in to come into the locker room. When you're right after a game, like putting things on Instagram that are Texas stuff, it's like, come on, you're in the middle of the season. It's not. Let's not do that. Because what happens when he gets? Because you already know what happens if he gets here and he's not getting as many targets as he wants right away. It's like, come on, you gotta have people who are a little more all in that way. Perkins, now I'll say this though, even if Perkins did have that attitude, I'd still take him. That's a bad dude.
Do you think so? Obviously, there's been more concrete buzz about Stewart. I haven't heard anything about Perkins. Andrew, is that more of like a gut kind of feeling, or just throwing it out into the ether?
LSU's locker room doesn't sound super well put together, and I think that's well noted. It's the combination of that along with the necessary roster turnover that comes from that, like from a new head coach and the culture shift you're going to see. I'm not saying that that's like there's no concrete proof of that, but like I could see LSU losing 10. I could see them having like a Georgia type offseason even, where it's like you somehow managed to lose like 6 or 8 key starters or like key guys that would have come back to the anyway. That's where that comes from. It's more of a guess. Stewart, there's some unhappiness there.
Interesting. I take both of them in a heartbeat. Put that out there.
Yeah, I would too. But anyway, that was my fiery take for.
My fiery take is I don't know if I want to say this because this might jinx it. Either Oklahoma or Texas A&M will either go 6-6 or not make a bowl game. I could see Oklahoma not making it, and I could see a world where A&M doesn't either. Because it's still incomprehensible to me that offense only scored, was it 13 points against Appalachian State?
Well, 14.
14. Okay. If you can only score 14 against them, then I can't. And your quarterback situation being what it is, you don't have the strong running attack you used to, and the defense isn't anywhere near it is still good but not great. I would say, there's just too many good players in the SEC that you can lose a lot of games. I think they'll lose against Ole Miss. I think they will lose LSU. I think they'll probably lose Florida. So that's 3 right there. And they could lose more. So
Yeah, so I'm honestly gonna say something to contradict myself right here, but
Yeah.
one thing people say that Jimbo kind of just completely waits until Alabama to put all of his like crazy offensive plays and motions and stuff out there, and it just goes vanilla to start the season. I don't know how true that is, but
It's not.
okay, yeah. But
A lot of those plays on offense that were made last week were just pure effort plays, like
yeah,
Evan Stewart grabbing it
Stewart,
between
yeah,
three guys. That's not Jimbo drawing up a play. That's just having a freak athlete.
yeah. I think that's fair. Um, I mean, the Miami and Arkansas wins aren't aging as well as many may have thought. So
Miami really might not
the
pick a bowl
vitriol in your
game.
laugh is just—I love it.
Whose laugh?
Or I don't even know what the word to describe, but like
Are you
the
talking about me or Andrew?
yeah, you
Oh,
just
okay.
love the downfall of A&M. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, I mean, OU coming up with 7 losses. I don't know. It depends on when Dylan Gabriel gets back. Simple as that. But yeah, no, I mean, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around it with all the dysfunction going on around LSU in the last 2 seasons, that LSU was able to do like 10 times as much with Max Johnson in that offense than A&M is, with like maybe not more weapons, but at least a better offensive line, like a better running back.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
they just managed to make, I don't know, it's the A&M syndrome where they managed to make a lot of these quarterbacks look completely dysfunctional.
Jimbo Fisher has found, like I said, Milton Friedman had this beautiful quote where he said, only the government can take perfectly good ink and perfectly good paper and make the combination worthless. But, Jimbo Fisher kind of has that same problem of finding a way to take Evan Stewart, Chris Marshall, and A-Chain and not make them explosive. I just don't understand that. How can you're scoring like how much did they score against, they scored what, 17 against Miami, was it? He scored,
Yeah,
and that's like not an elite defense. They scored what, 19 against Arkansas. Like, how are you not putting up points with that great of players?
yeah,
It's
no, I mean
just
that's
it's just it's
true.
it's just mind-boggling. And then of course, Mike Leach. I mean, my goodness, think of the bunch of guys who probably can't even like realistically get a Texas or an Alabama or a LSU offer for offense, just taking a bunch of nobodies and making a wine out of water every week. Just I don't know.
Is interesting. I mean, I would have been really interested to see how Zach Calzada did at Auburn this year, to see what like the Jimbo Fisher portal QB tree ended up looking like.
Oh, poor Brian Harson.
But
Now
it's
that
just
now that Rule is out, I think that somebody's gonna be like, yeah, let's get this while it's hot,
yeah, I don't know. I could see Brian Harsin going back to Boise State before too long, but that's an entirely different conversation. So.
Last thing, I told people that Rule was not going to work in the NFL. I was like, no, what you do in college, that's one thing. That's not how the NFL works. And sure enough, there you go.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, he's not the only one who needs to check his ego and understand the college game is more their game. I think that's true of Joe Brady too. I think Brady would be really great at the college level. I don't think he's like an elite mind at the NFL level.
No, but I think, man, I think if Joe Brady took like, I don't know, if he replaced like Dana Holgerson at Houston, like I think he could be a really good head coach.
If Now this would be scary. If Now this is what Jimbo Fisher should do. He should find a way to get Joe Brady to College Station.
Don't give him
yeah,
ideas.
no, I say no.
It would totally work. You know
Yeah,
it would work.
yeah,
So
Any bad offense, fucking Dabo did Joe Brady to Clemson.
I think, we don't have to completely go on a tangent, but Uiagalelei has been playing well the past couple games.
Yeah, he looks fixed.
That is true.
I mean, yeah, Klubnik hasn't pushed him out, and I think that's a lot of because of what DJ has done, not what Klubnik lacked.
Yeah, I thought that DJ was going to be a Kelly Bryant of this season, and he is pretty
Nah,
good on him.
DJ's got too many tools.
No, he does. Kelly Bryant had some of the biggest feet I've ever seen. Or I think it was a size 18 feet.
You don't get this information anywhere else besides the Hook 'em Horn show.
Exactly.
No, you don't. But okay, let me ask you this. So, do you think that Saban is nearing the end? Because his Alabama teams just don't frighten me the way they used to. They're still the best team, but they're not scary anymore. And they're just as talented as they used to be. That's the thing. It's like, okay, is it NIL or is it I don't know what it is.
I think there's two parts to that. I think one thing that's really indicative of the way that things are trending with Saban lately is just that like a lot of his assistants, former assistants, have started to figure him out. But like the way he runs things, like they've been able to take enough off of the Alabama model to where it's working in other places in certain respects. And it's working at Georgia. It's working better at Georgia in ways right now than it is at Alabama. So I think in that regard, I don't know if that's something that motivates Saban enough to keep him around longer. But like, no, I mean, I think there's a point if college sports keeps like trending more like a professional model where it's like, yeah, I'd probably say the end is near for Saban, probably within the next 3 to 5 years. He doesn't adapt as well as I think a lot of people thought he would. And I think that's going to continue. The problem for Alabama is a lot of people figured the replacement would be Dabo Swinney. Also does not adapt to this new environment super well. So, at least compared to some of the other head coaches, the Lincoln Rileys and Ryan Days of the world. So, take.
All right. Well, guess we could end it there then. Because now we've probably inspired Saban to go on another rampage.
Yeah.
He watches the show,
Funny if he did. Well, we managed to get Casey Thompson to stop talking about Texas earlier this season. Did not expect that to happen. So
Yeah, he'll get to play in a conference championship game like he's always wanted to, then get crushed.
is Nebraska going to drop down to the MAC before the end of the season?
No, the Big Ten West is just that bad. I still can't believe they fired Paul Chryst. That was a bad move.
Wisconsin's going to find someone else to lead them to a 9-3 season every year.
Yeah, I think it'll be Leipold or it'll be Rule.
It could be Leonard too. Who just stays in place.
I could see that. Yeah.
True. Anyway, all right. Well, thank you all for joining this week. Yeah, got off on quite a few side tangents there, but we're in the middle of the college football season, so what else will we be doing right now? Join us next week. Hopefully we're talking about a top 20 matchup here between Oklahoma State and Texas, bound for Stillwater. So that's pretty much it.
Welcome.
Welcome.